Todd, welcome to the show, man. Super excited to have you on here, get to learn a little bit more about your story and who you are. But just to begin with, who are you, what do you do, and where are you from?
My name is Todd Eichholz, owner and CEO of A&A Paving. We're a paving, concrete, and seal coating company out of the suburbs of Chicago. I've owned this company for 10 years. Today is actually the 5-year anniversary of buying it completely.
Awesome. Congrats.
So 10 years ago, I bought 50% of it. I was 32. My partner was 72. He was looking for a transition. Kids wanted nothing to do with the business. And he was actually my paving company. We're a commercial real estate development company. And he was actually my paving company, and got to be really good friends with him, got to know him, and built a bond. And he offered to come in and be a partner. And 5 years ago today, I bought the other half.
That's awesome.
That's a rare story. Todd, tell us about, I guess that's kind of how you got into construction, but what was your formal entry into the construction industry?
Sweeping floors when I was about 8 years old.
Wow.
My grandfather, commercial real estate developer, had a very large construction company, built industrial parks. So bought raw land, put in sewers, roads, subdivided lots, and then did build to suits on all of the lots. So we controlled all the construction. So ever since I was a kid, I've been involved in construction in a number of different ways. And he was also one of the best entrepreneurs I've ever met in my life. So had a lot of other things outside of construction, which is the way I'm wired as well. Own several other businesses, all somewhat with a construction focus. So ever since I was a little kid, I was always at his side. He was my neighbor. His backyard touched my backyard. So awesome. Every day after school, summers, everything else, we were two peas in a pod. And so he was mentoring me when I didn't realize I was being mentored for about a decade after that.
Wow.
That's cool.
And then ended up kind of taking over his real estate business and construction, built a bunch of buildings, started doing a lot of general contracting work once 2008 and 9 kind of hit. Most of the stuff we built was for ourselves, investments that we owned, or the investments in the industrial park that we build the suits. So started doing a lot of general contracting work, spending other people's money for a change. And did that for a bunch of years, and that's kind of how I got to know A&A Paving a little bit more. They were doing some work for my grandfather before I was around, and just built that relationship and kind of fell in love with the idea of starting something new. And here we are 10 years later.
I mean, Todd, I'm sure you have, but have you ever read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Absolutely.
It sounds very similar, right? Like that opportunity to get to learn and be mentored at an early age. Man, tell us a little bit more. I mean, you talked about it. You got to be mentored, and really, I guess that kind of set you on your entrepreneurial journey. But tell us some more about that first phase before you became into ownership, some of the lessons you learned as you were coming up through the industry.
My grandfather taught me hard work and grinding, that every job is important, that whether you're sweeping the floors or you own the place, it doesn't matter. And usually when you own the place, you still sweep the floors.
Right.
So he taught me hard work. He taught me a lot of things that I still carry through today. Actually, I have a picture of him behind us. Just always looking after me. He passed away a number of years ago, but still one of the biggest influences on my life. And he taught me a lot that really developed my faith as well, that we've been blessed with a lot, and I've been blessed more than I deserve. But with that becomes giving back and making sure others are taken care of. And that's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
He'd always joke that he could never outgive God, that anytime that, he did a lot of crazy things. He bought a fire department, remodeled it into an after school care and an adult daycare, because one of his friends at the time, they were in their late 70s, his wife didn't have anywhere to go and she had Alzheimer's. So he literally bought this from the village, turned it into this and donated to the church. And he said anytime he did something like that, somehow God just overflowed the blessings 10 times.
Yeah.
So he'd always joke that, yeah, you've been given a lot, but you're expected a lot more on the other side. So he developed me in a lot of different ways all around, between family, work, and my faith.
That's awesome. Too much is given, much is required, right? That's most people say too much is given, much is expected, but much is required. We know that.
Absolutely. And that's something that I get to pass on to my kids now, and just explain that the life we have isn't normal. We are blessed, and we can bless others, and we have,
That's right.
we have a calling to do that. So
That's awesome.
it's kind of cool. My youngest daughter is wired identically to me. Can't sit still, entrepreneurial mindset. What can we build? What can we grow? What can we do?
That's awesome.
My oldest is wired like my wife. She's wired like my mother and my sister. She's going to be a preschool teacher. But it's cool to see. Now I understand what my grandfather kind of saw in me at a young age, and that kind of that spark. So I get to kind of take what he taught me and pass it on to her, and hopefully she's running everything someday.
That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
that's awesome. That's awesome, man.
Todd, I honestly, your story started out incredible, and what you shared with us offline too. I mean, I'm excited to learn a little bit more. So let's dive into just kind of how you got started. We know that you're in development, and your grandfather kind of led you into the realm of construction itself. But when you made this decision to buy A&A, what was the kind of contributing factor of when you're like, I want to kind of go off on my own? And I guess it was kind of something that, right, maybe in your mind, your granddad started the development, you kind of been doing that, but A&A is something that that's yours. You can kind of jump into it and grow something, So what was the catalyst to kind of get to that point?
So I always felt like God created me to lead a team. And as a general contractor, that's a very different leading. You're talking subcontractors, they're working for you, you're their customer. Expectations, the way you lead them is completely different than a team member, an employee. And I think I maybe learned some bad habits of on the general contracting side of what I thought leading was, which can be quick deadlines, yelling and screaming if it's not met. And I just felt like God called me for more, and just kept praying. God, and as a general contractor, we built a lot. I mean, a lot with a very small staff. And I just felt he was calling me to something bigger. And I kid you not, within a couple of weeks, Mr. Olson came to me and said, "Hey, I think we should go to lunch." And I said, "Okay." Usually, I was president of the Chamber of Commerce at the time. And, there's a lot of insurance guys and bankers, and they all kind of huddle in a corner. Him and I were the only contractors. So we're like huddling in the other corner. And, we'd have a beer or two, and we'd be talking about equipment. I would, with a lot of the shopping centers and property we own, I would actually rent his skid steers to plow them.
Oh, cool.
Because he was seasonal. So we just had this great relationship. And he said, "I think we should go to lunch." So we did. He made an offer, kind of pitched it to me. And a couple of weeks later, we had a done deal. But I just felt like I was designed and called to lead a team, not just a business the way that my grandfather was. So kind of what I always wanted to do was do business better than him, and also on the family side.
That's good. I'm writing two things down, because one, what leading was, that kind of struck home to me, right? Let's dive in deeper to that, because as you know, Todd, our podcast is about equipping the next generation, right? And so this next generation that's coming in, the people that are our age, they're going through that right now. They're seeing, hey, I'm going to try to troubleshoot and try to find out how I'm supposed to lead, right? Like, I need to find who myself is and my own personality. But then also I got to figure out, what is the difference between yelling and screaming, or maybe raising your voice and being fair but firm, right? There's a lot different attitude. But just talk about, I can go on about just stuff in my, I'll be quiet, because I can just talk about it and people already know about it from the podcast previously. And I've made plenty of mistakes just in my first 3 years of what leading was to me. But tell us a little bit about that, because for our generation, that first 3 years, it's imperative to learn your personality, how you lead others, what it means to be a general contractor, a trade partner. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things is when we were leading subcontractors, you can kind of all lead them about the same. It's deadlines, it's meeting expectations, it's accountability, and sometimes it can get heated when that doesn't get met. Leading a team is entirely different, and you can't lead everyone the same. Something we do at A&A is, you've heard of DISC assessments and you've heard of all these other things. We use something called Live Style, and it's how people process and give and receive information. And so, in the first couple of years, we couldn't figure out when I came, granted, this company was 55 years old when I bought it.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
That set in its ways.
Yeah.
We had an older staff. I mean, I think the median age was like 60, and I'm 32 coming in here, and
That's
just
tough.
ideas of how to
Trying
do
to change
different.
everything. Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out, why is everybody button heads when everybody's got the same goal. We all want to see the company do well. We all want to make money and provide for our families. But why is the day-to-day so hard when everybody's just trying to do their job? And what we discovered was by using live style and how people process information, how they're wired to do their jobs. So if you take like a salesperson, they're wired to be a total extrovert. They're wired to kind of be the life of the party. They like to be outgoing. They like to get, the job. They get so excited by it, but they suck at details usually. Now, if you take your ops manager, your whoever in finance, they might not be wired that same way. They're going to be extremely, extremely, extremely detail oriented, which is what makes them so great at their job. So when those people are passing back information or having to communicate, they're just wired totally different. So it can be, why is this person always up my what about the paperwork? Because that's what they need to do their job really, really well. But then they say, why does this person never care? Or why is this person always out and entertaining clients and partying? It's like, but that's what makes them really good at their job.
Yeah.
Sure.
Getting everybody to realize she's not doing that to be a pain in the butt. She's doing that because that's what her job requires, and she's really good at it. Right. And so is the other gal in sales. She's wired to do it this way, and that's what makes her really good. So getting everybody to understand they're not doing it to mess with you. They're not doing it to be a pain in the butt. This is what the job requires for us to all be at a super high level of excellence. If we want to be a high performing team, we have to have high performing leaders in every seat.
I love that, Todd. Really on my last job site in New Orleans, we had to have a security checkpoint when you came in the building because it was a federal job, still active floors, right? And so the foreman there, I think Mr. Vic, he was in his 60s at that point, early 60s. And man, just a dude that I learned a lot from. Nothing about construction. I mean, I learned stuff from construction about him, but the main thing I can remember from that relationship is people. He knew how to get anybody to do anything, not just for him, but for anyone. He knew someone's personality. We have a security checkpoint. And so every single morning he's coming in, verifying who the person is, getting to shake their hand, right? But he's like the salesman that has this big personality, but he knows when, all right, that guy has a big personality. I'll just tone it down and let him, right? He just knows when the next guy comes in, he's an introvert. I got to get him going. I got to get him excited for the day. And I was just like blown away by it my first few weeks. And I was just like, how do you do that, man? He's like, man, you just got to care. You just got to figure out who that person is and care. And I think a lot about where I was in the beginning when I first started my full-time job for Brassman and Gorey, man, I was quick deadlines, yelling, screaming, why have you done this, right? And I have a fire in me like that that can be released. And people are just like, man, again, talking about what we're talking about before, I'm this little guy, I'm not intimidating. So when I'm yelling, it's really not scary anyway. People are probably just laughing. But I had to learn if I didn't first invest in the person in front of me and get to know them or even care remotely about anything that wasn't work related, they're probably not going to want to do a lot for me. And so that took me a while to figure out. And unfortunately, a lot of our industry, they still think that way, right? But there's some grumblings that are starting to change, and there's this new tide that's coming in that really put people first. And I saw this on your LinkedIn. It said, paving, putting people first. I love that.
Yeah, our tagline is Pavers putting people first, because we truly believe that if we put the employees first, they're going to serve our customers, they're going to serve our community, and asphalt will follow. If we just take care of the team and we take care of the people and we make this the best place to work for in construction, which we've won that award 2 years in a row now, it just works. And we're trying to be the non-contractor contractor, because there's this massive exodus of guys and gals, 55 and older. Operators are retiring at like an 8-to-1 for what people are coming in at. Like, we have to get younger people interested in something that's not really that sexy. Like, hey, you want to sell paving and concrete, or you want to be in this? And we have to get people excited when we can compete with stay-at-home jobs or someone that could work for Google. Like, you can make an impact in this world selling paving, because it's not about the paving. And Greg, we're the best at it, but it's about the people. Right. If you can serve the people, I mean, we're just trying to change how people think in this industry. But like you said, Davis, there's this huge rift right now of a certain way of doing it the old way, a big gap, and then newer, younger leaders that kind of know there's a better way to do this. That's and right. Trying to get those to mesh they're hard.
It's tough.
They're hard.
And
And we had to do that. I mean, our crew, average tenure on our crew is 22 years.
Wow.
So they've seen and been led by do it my way or else, a very command, authoritative penalties if you don't, like you're going to sit, into, well, why don't we rehash this and talk about it? Like, let's talk this through. What could we have done better? We have a lot of meetings, and sometimes they're like, why do we have so many of these meetings? It's like, because we get better.
Yeah.
We're not meeting to meet, but if we can use it and get better on every single job, like, it happens. It just does.
Yeah.
This is construction, but how do we get better? And then how do we serve the team through it?
Yeah.
And then it just works. It's not yelling and screaming. Yeah, is technically probably easier, but for the long haul, that will not work at this industry. Probably just in a few short years. It's already not working.
Right.
And the younger generation expect different.
Yeah. And it's just, to me, the yelling and screaming is just lazy, right? Whenever I see someone that their go-to is yelling and lazy, I'm thinking about, all right, well, what's the ulterior motive here? Why are they acting like this, right? That's where I go to. It's like,
Yep.
what's going on for them to now, this is so important that we're yelling and screaming. But to back up, Todd, what I loved about you, what you were talking about is, it's one of the things that Walker and I are wanting to do. We were trying to get out on job site and paint the picture for the younger generation, right? Like coming to Todd's site and seeing what it looks like for his company to put people first and to make a YouTube video, kind of like Aaron Witt's doing. But because that younger generation, man, like you said, we're competing against Apple, we're competing against Google, we're competing against having this in their hand at all times. So we got to go there. We got to get to the point where they have some type of video or picture to where they see construction. Maybe it's in high school, maybe it's before then, right? Where they can go through and get to see, man, what's it like to be a paver? What's it like to be a roofer? What's it like to work for a general contractor? What's it like to work for a trade partner, right? And just understand that. But then even take it the next step, like you're talking about, how can we not just put that out, but also show there's companies that are doing a really good job, and the secret to that is the relationships that they've made, right? So Todd Eichholz has put together a company that works hard on relationships. And that's what you said first. You didn't say we work hard at paving, and I know you do, right? But you have the right things in order. You are putting people first, and a byproduct of you putting people first is your company succeeds. Like you said, the past 2 years, your company has won the best contractor award, right? That just speaks for itself.
Yeah, and the values of our company are serve, grow, impact. And if you think about the order they're in, we can't grow unless we serve. We can't impact unless we serve and grow. I mean, there's a reason why we picked those specific words in that, and those are the values we live by. And I mean, to go back to what you said about the yelling and screaming, most of the time it's overcompensating for an insecurity. Yeah. And I'm just going to power up and scream at you until you just do it my way, because they don't know how to lead. And with the younger generation now, I think a lot of them think that's just the way construction is. And they're like, I want nothing to do with that. But if we can show them that construction is actually evolving. I mean, most trades are probably 15 years behind the times. Paving might be 20, but that this could be a great industry for them. And you can make a phenomenal living. I mean, we're a union shop, and the benefits and the payroll that we pay still blows my mind, but they make a hell of a living.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you can make north of 100 grand in seasonal 7/8 months, that's not bad. It's not bad at all. So
that's awesome.
Especially for the kids that maybe college isn't the answer.
Right.
Like, college wasn't for me. I was forced to go, and I threw in the towel my senior year and quit and said, I want to go to work. So it's not for everybody, but that doesn't mean that you can't live an amazing life, have a phenomenal career, and make an impact serving other people.
That's right.
Yeah. It's incredible that you say that, Todd. I mean, you're right. Construction, the industry itself, right, lags behind. I mean, it's 15, 20, 25 years behind a lot of different things. And that's Davis mentioned it earlier, that's one of our missions, is to equip the next generation of builders, right? How do we bring in more people? Because like you said, it's an 8-to-1 or maybe even worse ratio of people getting out of this industry versus people coming into it. So for your company, two things really. One, you talked a lot about having to change the culture. How was that? What was the pushback that you received from the people there? How long did it take to truly everyone kind of learned, oh, we're not going to do it the old way. We actually kind of get to work together, right? And then number two, how are y'all going about bringing in new workers, new generations of builders that can continue the paving industry going forward? Because AI is replacing a lot of things, but it can't replace construction, at least not in the near future at all, anywhere close, right? It's going to need people, it's going to need workers, it's going to need someone who can go out there and actually put something down, use their hands to build it. So what is A&A doing to combat that?
So on the culture side, culture's a funny thing. It's what you create, but it's also what you allow. So every company has a culture, whether they think it or not. It's you might not be actively trying to grow a culture or have it be what you want it to be, but every company has a culture based on just what you allow. The employees in the team see and feel from the top down who gets away with what's allowed. Is a ton of swearing, is bad jokes, is derogatory things towards women. If that's allowed, that's your culture. Unfortunately, because you're allowing it. So when we really had a mindset and an intentionality on the culture, we were all totally agreeing in what culture we have and what we wanted. It just was never out in the open and a focus. So once we really started saying, these are the values, this is our mission statement, this is what we do, and this is how we're going to get there, and this is what we're going to protect. And that means exiting people that don't fit the culture. And that's a super hard thing for certain companies to do, especially when that toxic person produces a lot of freaking money in sales. Because you can overlook, because sometimes sales cures all, but it doesn't cure bad culture.
But everyone else notices that you kept them around.
And they know why. Well, Johnny's allowed because he brings in bags of money in sales, but he's also a train wreck of a human being. He's horrible to his family, and he's drunk half the time. So sometimes you have to make that hard call if you're going to be a culture driven company, and that's what we are. We made a lot of tough decisions and exited people that, we went backwards in sales. We went backwards in production sometimes because it means that much. But that was a very short stop of staying there, because once they exited, that gave other leaders that never even had the chance to rise. Now we can see what they can do.
It's awesome.
And then they start realizing, oh, that stuff doesn't fly here. Like, they start, puffing up their chest of because they have the same values. So we hired for value and integrity, and we trained for competency in the industry and all that.
I love that.
Because
it's awesome.
It's not the hardest industry in the world. And if we're going to serve people, I want people that are hardwired to be servant leaders, help others, actually care about our clients, care about our team. I'll teach you length times width. We've got a hell of a training program. It'll take 7 weeks, but we'll get you there. But trying to do it the other way, and just because someone's in the industry, and it used to be, you never hire a salesman from outside the paving industry. It's because it's too hard to train them. And it's but then the pool is this big.
Right.
You get what you get,
and it's growing smaller day by day.
And you wonder why the people you get aren't the quality that maybe you want. So 90% of my office, so we've got 12 or 13 people in the office, 90% of them are from outside the industry.
Wow.
So we started looking at the positions and saying, what do we want for that position, not from that person? So we hired our operations director, who in our world, operations is the internal side. So customer service, finance, all these other things. And we're like, what industry has the best type of customer service? Like the hotel industry. So we started searching and putting ads out for hotel people. And we were able to get Jess, who came from that. And she brought all of her hotel knowledge and customer experience to change this. My president came from Disney, best customer experience in the world.
Wow.
So we focused on the customer experience, and then we started hiring people from outside paving and teaching them what we do.
That's pretty cool.
Truly trying to be the non-contractor contractor, and hiring for integrity and culture, and then we'll train you for